welcome everybody to the LinkedIn for B2B Growth Show. I'm your host, Michelle J. Raymond, and this week I'm joined by the wonderful Kerry Dobson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
We're talking about scaling business impact through groups, which is something that you are just wonderful at. But I want to ask you, before we jump into all of your knowledge around that, how did you get started on LinkedIn? What's your journey been like?
So, my LinkedIn journey was I ended up with a COVID layoff. I was an accidental entrepreneur and I found out, okay, where am I going to show up? And LinkedIn was really my only choice because I still to this day never had a Facebook account. So that was out. Facebook at that point was Instagram out. So it landed me on LinkedIn. And what I loved about LinkedIn was when I originally used it, it was a resume place, stuffy. And then once I got into it this time around, it was like, oh, people are nice and people are helpful. What's this all about? So it took me a while. I definitely have to give credit to Michelle Griffin and her community because without her community, I think I would still just be scrolling and maybe occasionally liking and commenting.
That 365 community is amazing. And I will put the details in the show notes so that other people can join it, because I think it's about 1,400 members strong now, what she's built. And it's just been incredible to watch as a space for people to learn LinkedIn and then launch from there. And so today we're going to be talking about groups. Now, I told you before the show that I have people on the show that they're experts that I want to ask questions of. So I'm just letting everybody else listen into your answers, because here's the thing, I'm going to set this up for you. When I think about group coaching programs, it makes me want to rock in a corner. My mind just goes to, it sounds good in theory, but I'm not that organized. And I feel like it just would overwhelm me and I just run the other way. So I'm hoping I'm going to learn some things today from you that might actually change my mindset around that, because I can see that there's an impact that you could have conversations with more people at once rather than one-on-ones. So we're going to jump into this. So when's the right time to start considering a group coaching program? What things do I need in place before I even think about having one?
Yeah. So this is honestly, I joke that a lot of times my first role in your life is to tell you no. Because what happens is I feel like there's this flippant idea out there that it's, oh, you're a coach, or oh, you're an author. You just need to have a group program. And it's just said. And the reality is, if you're struggling to get one on one clients, it's going to be worse to try to get groups because now you have the numbers that you have to get. So you have to do the basic community building. So you need an email list, you need an engaged community, you need to have worked with enough people that you know what are the tools, resources, and experiences that always lead to success for people. So you have to have been around enough to say, okay, I've got these resources, I've got this framework, I've got this point of view, and I'm confident that they work on a regular basis. And that's when you want to start thinking about, how do I scale this with groups?
So it's not an experiment place. Is that what you're telling me?
So it can be. I joke, I'm not the gatekeeper of groups. If I could, maybe I would, but you can try it. It's just the reality is that you're probably not going to get a lot of people in your group. You're going to put a lot of effort in for very little impact, and you're not going to be able to make it repeatable. I always say, in order to have a group, you need at least three people, right? It's not a group without three people. It needs to have an end date and a start date. You need to have something or some things that they will accomplish in it. So if you don't have the community or you don't have enough people saying yes to you, you're not going to be able to do it in a way that doesn't actually hurt your brand. Because the worst thing you can do is try to do a group program. It doesn't go well. You only have a couple people in it. And then now suddenly that's the impression that your group program has out in the world.
I tried once upon a time to do just a one-off group training. Just in my mind, it would be so amazing. I could get 10 people turn up and they'd all just turn up because it was cheap and it was me, and I left it to the last minute, let's be clear. I gave it no time to promote it. I had no list. I knew the product was fine, but I put so much into it. And then I think there was like 3 or 4 people maybe that turned up for the training. In my mind, it was going to be 10 or more. They'd all be knocking down my door. Not quite how it works. I think there's like a bit of a runway that we need to make sure that we're
Yes.
building this up for other people. So I really came unstuck with that. And that was a lesson for me to if I'm going to do something like you just said, do it properly. And I really didn't. And I don't think genuinely I even wanted to do it. I think I just thought I should have done it as a coach. Oh, let's do group training. It seemed like this next evolution. And the fact is, I love one on one. So I just crashed and burned.
Yeah, and that's common, that's the reality. First of all, I think there's a lot of people out there talking about the maths behind group programs, right? You make it affordable for those that show up, but you make tons of money, but it doesn't actually talk about what's the work I have to put in to create this, both from like, how do I craft this? How do I market this? And then how do I lead this so that it does have that positive impact on them? And yes, you can make the numbers work, but it only works if you have a big enough community that it becomes repeatable because all that work you're going to put on at the front end then pays off every time you do it.
That I get. And I've just recently joined my first group program as a participant. And so I can see how it can work with the benefits. But what should and shouldn't be included in a group program? Is there like people that jam too much in, not enough? What are we trying to do with this group? Is it short, quick wins, or is it longer term impact, or just depends on what the goals are?
So the answer is it depends, right? Because what you want to start with is what is the outcome that you are promising or saying that they will get out of it. And it's your outcome that will dictate everything else. So I always say you get to decide resources or expectations, but not both. So you can say, I only want a 6 week program or a 6 month program. That means the expectations you have of what people can accomplish, you can't change, right? You have a certain amount of time. Or you can say, no, I want them to have this experience. I want them to accomplish this. And so, therefore, how long it is, how many times we meet, all of that kind of stuff. You have to be willing to negotiate on it. When it comes to what should or shouldn't, I always say only do in the group what only the group can do. So many times people approach group programs as, well, I'm just going to talk at you, and then I'm going to give you 15 minutes to ask questions. Right? Listen, that to me is office hours and there's a place for it. But a group program, actually, the entity that you're looking at or the container that you're looking at is the group. And it's about how do you facilitate that group so that they're supporting each other, they're helping each other, and they're still making progress towards that outcome that you've promised them.
So there's a community feel to the group rather than just I get to talk at everybody. Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm telling you. So there's times where you might be talking at, you're sharing your wisdom, but the majority of the time, you want them doing things. You want them experimenting, reflecting, having conversations, trying things out. And so I've yet to find somebody who didn't put enough in a group program. It's always the other way. And it comes from a really good place because you want to help. You have so much wisdom, you have so much experience, and you're like, here, have it all, but what other people experience is the fire hose, and then they can't handle it. They don't make the progress. And now they're not kind of like, well, what's next? They're still trying to figure out what happened. And for me, the success of a group program is when your clients at the end are asking you, what is next? I'm so into this. I want to go to the next level with you. And they're turning around and they're selling it for you because it was so impactful. And they're saying, this person needs to be in it. This person needs to be in it. And that's where, to me, the value of group programs really comes because if you do it well, it will sell at least 50% of it every time by itself by the clients that you had in the past one.
That's amazing. I was a bit hesitant when I signed up for Irit's course, and just because I'd never done a group program before and I wasn't sure what to expect. And this is to solve one piece of building my business in the background. It's not how I earn my money. And it was one of those things that I thought, okay, should I or shouldn't I do this? And what I've discovered is I've been going down rabbit holes trying to learn everything for myself. And this was an opportunity where I could actually get outcomes in 8 weeks, which seemed like a reasonable period of time. In my mind, at first, I was thinking, I think that's too long. I don't think I can wait that long. In
Mm.
reality, now I realize that's actually how long everything takes for me to implement it on the other side when I'm learning. And I think I've grossly underestimated how long it takes to learn new things. And my favorite part has been the group. all of us with unique perspectives giving feedback to each other. And I've just learnt so much, and it's had impacts on other areas of the business which weren't part of what we were setting out to do, which has been even more amazing. So I told you, Kerry, that when it comes to organization and planning, not going to lie, it's not my strong point. Dates and times are not how my brain works. I've got people that help me with that kind of stuff. But what's a realistic time frame to put this thing together? I go out, I get my online course platform, and it all looks so easy. Just upload the videos, do it, out you go, send it to the mailing list. Ta-da! But let's get real here. What does it look like in the launch phase of a new program?
Yeah. And I think the course is a great place to start because there it's all about knowledge, right? You're not providing that opportunity for what I've heard called care, right? Where it's let's hold space. You can ask questions. I'm going to give you a little bit more information. You're going to try stuff out. You're going to work with other people. And so it's that care part that is the distinguishing factor between kind of a course or a group program. And so the reality is there's not a lot that you have to kind of plan out in terms of, oh, there's so much you have to do. The people that I work with typically, they already have all the content in some way, shape, or form. They pay me to tell them no. So there's like less of it. And then it's about how do you literally hold space and create space for people to practice this? So it's things like this is a great piece of knowledge, but what do they do with it? What's the experience around it? So the answer to how long it takes often depends again on the length of your program and how much of those experiences you already have the resources for versus how much you have to make up or create yourself. But I would say at least minimum 3 months before. So start thinking about it before you launch it. The other thing to remember is the marketing part of it, right? That's going to take a while too. If you have a community, it's a little bit easier, but it still takes a while for people to say, yes, I'm in, especially the first time you do it. And that's where doing beta testing and like having that first group at like a great price, requiring them to give you feedback might help you get a few more yeses.
If you were to do your first group program, say I have a friend called Michelle who was thinking about doing a group program maybe sometime in the future. And Michelle thought, what's an ideal length for that first course? Is that you don't want to bite off too much? Is it give yourself more time? Which way do you look at it?
Yeah, so I would say the most important part is what is the minimum amount of experiences your clients need to have in order to feel some level of success that makes them feel like, I've got this. That's the minimum amount of time that you want for a program. And what I would say is, unless you're doing something that is, I think about some of these resilience programs or somatic programs that really take a long time for that integration to take place. So you're looking kind of 6 months to a year there. Everything else, I would say, go shorter to create that momentum of success and then have the next phase ready.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I'm just thinking about the course that I'm doing. And what I've loved is I can actually see it building week after week. And I'm getting more confident week after week to the point where I'm willing to go and try some things in the background that we haven't even been taught yet, but I'm just excited by it. And I love that feeling. And it's not something that I expected to get out of doing the course. I'm not going to lie, there was a small piece of me that went, oh, it's a cheaper way to do this. And I
Yeah.
was concerned because I don't particularly enjoy learning in group settings, but it has been brilliant. For me, it's just been a positive. I can see how it could come easily unraveled in if I landed in the wrong spot with the wrong group leader. It would either be too
Absolutely.
much or too little, I think.
Yeah. And the reality is, one of the things that I am working towards is helping us to raise the standards of what a group program is. Because whether it's through kind of our traditional education program where we have an expert talking at us, telling us if we've succeeded or not, or a lot of the group programs where we still have that talking head that's just giving you lots of wisdom, but not really helping you to do it. I think we have such low standards for so many of our group programs. And I think that's part of the problem is we as consumers have experienced those not so great ones. So therefore, we're hesitant to do it, but we're also, how do I do it so that they don't experience that? Because we don't want our clients to have that experience.
Oh, definitely not. So I have a question for you just based on some research that I've been doing around LinkedIn specifically, and that is that we all learn differently. So I particularly love to read. There is a prolific amount of video content that teaches you how to do stuff, and there are people that want to be hands on and all kinds of things. How do you manage that in a group setting? Because one thing that I struggle with, you jump onto Google, how to do this, sends you to YouTube. YouTube makes you watch videos and they give you how to do it. But in my brain, I want to read it step by step. How do you accommodate people that learn differently in groups?
Yeah. So, one of the things that you want to think about is what is a way that I can provide this to people in different kind of formats? The reality is that even if we think, okay, I prefer to read or I prefer videos, we all actually learn by doing. The knowledge is not what the thing is. It's all
Mm.
about what we would call application. It's those experiences. So, whether you are offering some of that content kind of by video or by transcript, you can make that really accessible to people. But the reality is, even most of the people that have paid to be in your group program are not even going to consume that much of the additional content that you provide them. So it's really about knowing what is super important. So you make sure that's communicated when the group is together, and then doing what only the group can do, which is providing that experience, giving that feedback, giving that support.
I can imagine having those clear guardrails of what is and isn't included in the group would keep you on track because I would imagine as myself, I love helping people. And I can see how very quickly, if I was leading a group, someone would ask me a question and I'd be like, oh, I'd love to help you with that. And off we go. And then all of a sudden, other people are overwhelmed, or I'm overwhelmed trying to keep up, or we go over time, or I'm not delivering what I said. So I can see how that's really important. But what are some of the common mistakes that you actually see with new group leaders? What can we avoid as a leader of a group to really set the group up for success?
So the first one is too soon, right? We jump into group programs way before we're ready, way before our community is big enough to handle it. And then it kind of just is, wah, wah, right? It doesn't have that momentum. The second one is too much, right? We want everything to happen. We want them to have all the information. And it's really about paring it down to those experiences that they need to have in order to reach the outcome. So those are the two biggest and hardest ones to avoid, to be honest, because so much of what we're hearing out there is you need a group, you need a group. So we think we do it, right? Okay, I'm going to do it. And then the too much is just to your point, right? Like you want to help everybody. And this is the difference between working one on one and groups. When you're one on one, you can pivot. They ask you a question, you can answer it. It's fine. But one of the things that's the hardest transition for people is when you're the leader of your group, your responsibility is to the group as a whole. So there's ways to handle it where you can say, okay, can we talk about that offline, or let's do that as a special session or whatever. One of the things I think is super helpful is to do what I would call hybrid, where you have some one on one time with everybody within the program. So that if someone has a question that's totally off topic, but you really want to give it the information, you can say, let's make sure we talk about that in the one on one time. The other thing that the one on one time allows you to do is make sure that people are progressing together. So no one's getting too far behind that they're intimidated about taking part in the rest of the group.
Would you encourage people to run like a beta group first up before they roll it out further? Is that something that you would encourage?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. If you have so much experience with your resources and tools that you know that they work, beta's a little less important. But if you're putting it together for the first time and you think it's going to work, people are just more forgiving in a beta. The other thing is those are your raving fans for the program. So they get to influence where it's going, right? So it's also a great place for you to experiment a little, right? So for example, if we're working together and I'm like, no, you really want to do this as a group. And you're like, no, I don't. It's like, let's do it in the beta, see how it goes. And most times it's going to go way better than you think it is because you've created the container where people are ready to experiment and try different things.
We're going to jump into your framework in a moment because I think it's brilliant, your ease framework. But before we do that, if I'm setting up a group coaching program, what kind of things are you looking for as a measurement of its success? How do I know I've done a good job? Is it because they're referring other people, or is there something tangible that we're asking or looking for so that we can say, yeah, well done, job well done, let's roll it out again?
Yeah. So the first part before I would ever say, let's put a group program together is identifying the program outcome. So, what is the promise that you're giving them? And then we build everything around that outcome, right? So, you pretty much guarantee the results because you've set everything up for it. But for example, for you, you might say, okay, the outcome is you have a company page that has, if you want followers, like whatever those dynamics are, but you would say that's the outcome. So, at the end of it, everybody has like a company page and you've created a group show and tell where everybody's demonstrating and showing their company page to everybody. Everybody's giving feedback on it. So everybody's getting really good at knowing what works, what doesn't work, and all that type of stuff. So your program outcome is the result. It's the icing on the cake that everybody's then referring people to it because you have accomplished what you promised that they would get.
Makes sense. So start at the end, reverse engineer. I can make sense of that. That
Yeah.
works. But you've got a framework that is the EASE framework. So I'm just going to read out EASE is engaging, actionable, supportive, and effortless.
Yes.
Sounds like the dream. Tell me
Right.
about it. This is amazing.
Yeah, so the EASE framework is what we use to help you put together the group program, but I love it because it's also a great checklist for if you should join a group program. So it works both ways. So the first one is about engaging, right? So it's how are you bringing people into the room? How is it not just a talking head? And there's lots of ways that you can do it. Simple things from like annotation if it's an online program where they're actually putting stuff on the whiteboard or polls, right? So there's lots of ways to bring them in, but it's they're actually participating with you. Okay. Actionable, again, is related to the program outcome. So they're taking action, they're making progress. That's a key part of it. Supportive is that container, the community that you've created. And one of the things that I love about supportive is we think as the leader, it's all on us, right? Oh, I've got to make sure everybody's okay. But the truth is that community and group members will support each other if you set up that expectation and you give them that opportunity to connect and work with each other. And then the last one is effortless. What I say about this is it's hard enough to do the things, right? I'm hiring you, I'm coming into this group program because I couldn't do it by myself. So make sure that all of that effort is towards making those changes and getting that program outcome and not about trying to maneuver through your program or where do I go for the information? Where do I show up? What time? So you want to make it as effortless as possible so all that effort can really go towards the outcome.
I actually found I didn't do much research. And as I said, it was my first group that I've ever joined. And I think I'd like to do a few more just to see what works, what I like, what I don't like. I think that would be a great way to become a better group leader. If I've never been a participant, I think to
Yes.
get on the other side might be a good point. But what I've loved is we have a session that is here's a video. This is what we're going to be talking about this week. Then we actually have a series where we get to learn about the particular thing, and then we have a couple of days and then we come back for a Q&A. Now, in the original setup, some of those things were flipped around, and so it was actually the group feedback that now we've been able to say, actually, we'd like to learn first, Q&A afterwards, not the other way around. It just makes our brains work better. And it's just been brilliant that the whole group was like, we can make this group program better, and vice versa. We've got more out of it. So it's been really eye-opening for me to be a part of this. It's been great that I can actually see them getting to that point that was promised. I can see it building bit by bit, week by week, because I think if I'm being honest, I would just throw too much at people because I would want them to learn too fast. And this is why I'm talking about this framework with you because I want to deliver it quickly. And I don't think that quickly is the best outcome for people.
We need time to practice, right? We can't go from knowing the right thing and then having integrated it, right? We need that time. We need that feedback. We need that support to do it. So it's one of those things you have to slow down to speed up a lot of times.
It's such a good saying, but I use that all the time. It's probably should be a life lesson for me. I should have a t-shirt with it on.
Right?
Slow down, Michelle, because I grossly underestimate how long it takes to implement things. I have it in my mind that somehow if I have an idea from idea to concept, I'll give myself like 2 weeks. You're saying 3 months, I'm saying 2 weeks in my brain. It'll be easy, Kerry. I've already got all of this content. It'll be fine. I talk about it all the time. So not. Like life happens, business happens, training happens. Yeah, it's just unrealistic expectations on my behalf. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about groups, which you think is a really important consideration for anyone that might be listening? The promised land of let's scale our impact. I'm totally on board for that. But what else should I factor into this?
Yeah, your last show with Mark, I think, is an important part about the community because to me, group programs are part of that community. It's either the on ramp or the off ramp or the in the middle ramp of your community. So for me, the thing to remember is that point that I made where only do in the group what only the group can do. And so
Mm.
it really is about putting together what is the strategy that I have so that people in this group can support each other, can practice with each other, can give each other feedback, and how do I facilitate and lead those sessions? So taking off that hat of I need to teach you so much, but instead I need to create the space, the group, and the community to allow this learning to take place.
I didn't realize as part of the course that I'm doing, I'm going to keep referring back to this because I
Yeah.
don't have any other examples to talk about. But what I found that I'm enjoying just as much is that we've got a Slack community where we can talk about our homework or talk about just whatever in general. And it's been really good because I've got to see other people's homework, they get to see mine. I've been able to give feedback and then vice versa. And as I said, some of the outcomes are so not even related to what we're talking about. It's been turned into this like cheer fest of putting prices up because all of a sudden we've realized by mapping out our processes, which is part of what we were doing, oh my God, is this what we actually do? So it's been really nice to take an hour out at a time to actually stop, look, and progress through that at a pace that actually works. And the Slack channel has been great. Do you have things like that you would recommend as part of your group coaching programs to have, whether it's Slack or any other platform? But do you
Absolutely.
encourage that as well?
Yeah. So I look at it two ways. One is the program itself. What are you doing to create kind of community and a sense of group before the program even starts, right? During and then after, because you want to keep that relationship going. You want to keep the support going. And so when I look at that, what I think about is what is the least friction that I can give someone to be involved in this group outside of the times that we're together. So I always think about where are you already, right? So if the majority of your group is on Slack already, get into Slack. If it's Discord, if it's Mighty Networks, if it's LinkedIn, wherever they already are, try to create that there. The other part is that it's the connections that you make when you're together that then gets cemented in that offline community and in that kind of wherever you're going to hold it. But if you're not doing the community and group building when you're together, that offline stuff just isn't going to work. And it's definitely not going to last once your program ends.
Totally makes sense. I can see how all of this is coming together just in my own experience. And it's something in my mind I'm planning for the future. I think you've planted a seed. I think with the right coaching, and I will definitely, when I'm ready, you know where I'm coming straight to you. And I'm going to encourage anybody that's listening, if you're not connected to Kerry Dobson yet, I am going to put her details in the show notes. I want you to go to her LinkedIn profile, top right hand corner underneath the banner is a bell. Go and click on that so you can learn everything she knows about groups because it is just brilliant. And it's not something that I ever considered until we crossed paths. And it was probably 365 community. Thanks to Michelle again. She's always helping. I couldn't do my business without her, as it turns out. But I just wanted to give you one last shot. I love to end the show with an actionable tip that we can give people. So, say I've listened to this, I'm inspired. Maybe I've had that little niggle that I really want to do a group program to scale my impact, to grow my business. What's the first actionable tip that you would give people? Where do we start?
So there's the first thing that I would say is let's have a conversation. I know that's the worst call to action, but the reality is that it's like everybody's in a different place. And what I can promise you is the conversation that we have, I'll either direct you to, hey, you need to build your community in this way or your email list before you do this, or we might be able to talk about what it is you do. I do also have the questions to ask at each milestone in your group program. If you go to my profile and go to the link tree, if you take a look at those questions, it'll start you thinking about, oh, there's a lot more to this than I thought there was. But if you can answer a lot of those questions already, it means that you're probably at a place where a group program might be the thing that you want to do.
I will absolutely make sure that people have access to both of those things in your
Great.
bio, in the show notes, so that they can reach out. Because, like I said, I have realized that for my business to grow, I'm going to do it by leveraging experts like yourself and your knowledge. So I appreciate everything that you have shared here today. You have definitely changed my mind. This planted a seed. It's not going to grow right now, but it's certainly something that I'd taken off the table because to me it felt so overwhelming and the workload felt too big. And I was like, I love training. I love teaching people. I love community. I love groups, but the admin side of it just has me freaked out. So I appreciate you actually letting me know that people like yourself can actually help me with that. And it doesn't have to be like that. So thank you for coming on the show. And I just appreciate everything that you've shared.
Thank you, Michelle. It's been awesome. And the reality is that part of the reason you feel that overwhelm is because we don't talk enough about what it actually takes. We're so flippant about it. So your experience is really normal. And once you set it up, it becomes repeatable. And that's where the ease comes for you.
That sounds much better, and I appreciate you for making me feel like it's not just me that's thinking this, because it just feels when you're on LinkedIn, everybody can do everything by magic, and I know the people when I speak to them have the same feeling, and I think it's important to get back to that. Not everyone's in the same place that we are, and we might have the keys to unlock that potential, and so I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show, and to all the listeners, we will catch you next episode. Cheers.